The hook. The cold darkness of space stretched forever, silent and empty. But tonight the void felt different. Something was coming. Above the blue curve of Earth, a giant wall of metal hung in the black sky. The fleet of the Galactic Empire. Hundreds of warships floated in perfect formation, their silver hulls shining under the distant sun. Each one was a city in the stars, armed with weapons that could burn worlds. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for centuries. They had crushed every race that resisted. They had erased entire civilizations from history. And now it was humanity's turn. From the Emperor's throne ship, high above the battle lines, the view was breathtaking. A single blue and white planet below. So small. So fragile. The Emperor leaned forward on his golden chair and smiled. "This is the world that refuses to bow?" he asked softly. His advisors nodded. One of them laughed. "Primitive apes. They send threats as if they are equals. Shall we answer their little message?" The Emperor raised one eyebrow. "Play it." A voice filled the throne room. Unshaken. "This is Admiral Raines of the United Earth Fleet. To the Emperor of the Galactic Empire, I give you our final words: surrender or burn." The room erupted in laughter. The Emperor chuckled too, but his eyes stayed fixed on the hologram. "Bold," he said. "Almost amusing. They do not understand the scale of the power before them." But not everyone was laughing. One of the older advisors frowned. "Your Majesty, these humans, they fight differently. Our reports say they adapt fast. Too fast." The Emperor waved a hand. "They will break like all the rest." Outside, the Empire's massive armada drifted closer to Earth. Their sensors scanned the human defense lines. Only a few hundred warships, smaller and weaker. Easy prey. Or so they thought. Inside the human flagship Resolute, Admiral Raines stood on the command deck, his hands resting on the edge of the holographic map. Blue dots marked his fleet. Red dots marked the enemy. The map was almost completely red. Behind him, Captain Vega spoke quietly. "Sir, they've taken the bait. Their fleet is moving in. Still no sign they've detected our ghost units." Raines' eyes stayed on the map. "But let them come closer." Far beyond the front line, hundreds of human ships floated in the shadows of empty space. They were invisible to sensors, their new ghost drive technology bending light and masking heat. While the Empire's attention was fixed on Earth, these hidden ships waited for the order to strike. Back in the Emperor's throne ship, the Imperial Fleet Commander sent a message to Earth's orbit. His voice was sharp and mocking. "Humans, your time is over. Lay down your weapons, and your people will be spared." The Resolute's crew listened to the message in silence. Then Admiral Raines leaned toward the comms officer. "Send reply." "This is Earth," Raines said. "We don't kneel. Not to you. Not to anyone." A heavy silence followed. Then the first shot was fired. A blinding beam of light cut through space, striking one of Earth's defense ships. The battle had begun. The Empire's ships advanced like a tidal wave, firing plasma bolts and rail slugs. Human ships weaved and dodged, firing back with railguns and missile swarms. The void lit up with fire and metal. From the outside, it looked hopeless. The humans were outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched. The Emperor leaned back on his throne, satisfied. "End this quickly," he told his commander. But deep in the shadows, something moved. The ghost fleet began to shift position, closing in behind the Empire's formation. They were silent. Invisible. Death in the dark. In the Resolute, a young ensign looked at the battle map and frowned. "Sir, the Empire hasn't noticed. They still think our front line is all we have." Raines gave a thin smile. "Good. Keep it that way. The longer they believe they're winning, the harder they'll fall." The Empire's fleet poured fire into the human defenses, breaking lines and scattering ships. Imperial crews cheered inside their warships. But then, sensors began to flicker. Strange readings appeared. Ships that weren't supposed to be there suddenly lit up on the screens. Dozens. Then hundreds. The Emperor sat forward, his smile fading. "What is this?" The fleet commander's voice shook. "Unregistered contacts. Inside our rear lines. Raines' voice cut through the chaos, broadcast to every Imperial ship. You were warned. This is your last chance to surrender. And then, without another word, the Ghost Fleet opened fire. From behind, human ships tore into the Empire's formation, shredding their engines, burning through their armor. The perfect wall of the Empire's fleet crumbled into confusion and panic. The Emperor's throne ship shuddered as explosions lit up the black sky. In that moment, he realized humanity was not just another world to crush. They were something far more dangerous. They were the beginning of the Empire's end. The Empire's arrogance. The Emperor's throne ship trembled, but he sat still, his fingers curled tightly around the golden armrest. Outside the viewports, the perfect formation of his fleet was breaking apart. Blue-white flashes tore across the darkness as human warships, ships that should not exist, appeared like ghosts in the night. Impossible, the fleet commander whispered. Sweat rolled down his temple. They were not here a moment ago. The Emperor's gaze was cold and sharp. Then they were here all along. No one dared to speak after that. The realization spread in silence. The humans had been inside the Empire's lines before the battle even began. But arrogance is a heavy armor, and the Empire had worn it for centuries. In the command chambers of their capital ships, admirals barked orders with contempt. They are a minor nuisance, one growled. They cannot hope to match Imperial firepower. Crush them. The order went out. Hundreds of Imperial guns turned toward the Ghost Fleet. The void filled with streaks of plasma and the thunder of mass driver rounds. Space itself seemed to shake. And yet, the human ships moved differently. They did not meet the Empire's attack head-on. They darted between blind spots, sliding behind the larger warships, cutting their engines, and striking at weak points with precision. The humans weren't fighting for glory, they were fighting to win. In the Resolute, Admiral Raines watched the chaos unfold. His jaw was set, his voice calm. Keep the pressure on their rear lines. Don't give them time to regroup. If they break formation, the rest will follow. His second-in-command, Captain Vega, leaned closer. Sir, their Sun Spear battleships are holding back. They may be waiting to fire. Raines' eyes narrowed. Let them wait. Every second they hesitate is a second we control the fight. Far away, on the Empire's flagship, the Emperor's eyes tracked the battle hologram. His advisors were arguing now, one demanding a full retreat to reform the lines, another insisting they use the Sun Spear to destroy Earth immediately. Enough, the Emperor said, his voice a blade in the dark. We will not flee from a race of apes. Prepare the Sun Spear. At that moment, a flashback burned in the Emperor's mind. Years ago, when humanity had first stepped into the wider galaxy, they had been cautious, curious, open-handed. They had offered trade, science, and peace. The Empire had smiled back and chained them. 2 human colonies had been seized in the first year. Men, women, and children taken as servants to imperial nobles. Cities stripped bare. Ships confiscated. And yet, the humans did not bend. Reports from those colonies had told strange stories, of prisoners who taught their captors how to repair machines faster, of workers who learned imperial tactics in weeks, of slaves who whispered plans of freedom to one another under the sound of the factory's roar. Other species had submitted to imperial rule for centuries without question. Humanity had taken less than a decade to stand up and fight. Back in the present, the Sun Spear began to charge. A massive weapon, its core glowing brighter than a star. Designed to burn planets to ash in a single shot, it had been the Empire's final answer to rebellion for generations. On the Resolute, alarms flared red. Sun Spear signature detected, the sensor officer shouted. Raines didn't flinch. He turned to Vega. Signal the Ghost units. It's time. From the darkness, the Ghost Fleet shifted. Ships broke away from their targets and dived toward the heart of the Imperial formation. They moved like predators smelling blood. The Imperial fleet scrambled to defend their flagship, but the humans were already too close. Railguns tore through shields. Torpedoes ripped open hulls. Fighters swarmed like angry insects, striking engines and weapon mounts. The Sun Spear's core hummed louder, brighter, until suddenly, the glow flickered. Systems failed. On the Emperor's bridge, the lights dimmed. "What's happening?" he demanded. "An electromagnetic surge, Your Majesty. They've crippled the firing sequence." The Emperor rose from his throne. For the first time in a century, he felt something strange in his chest. Not anger. Not pride. Something colder. Fear. And far away, as the human fleet circled closer like wolves around their prey, Admiral Raines sent one last message to the Empire. His voice was calm, steady, and merciless. "You still have a choice. Surrender now, or watch your empire burn." Humanity's secret weapon. The void was alive with fire. Imperial warships burned like falling stars, drifting helplessly as the Ghost Fleet tore through their lines. The Resolute's bridge was calm in the chaos, lit by the shifting blue light of tactical displays. Admiral Raines stood unmoving, watching his fleet strike from the shadows. "This is what they never understood," he said quietly, almost to himself. "They thought we were children in the dark, but we learned to see in the dark before they even noticed we were gone." Captain Vega glanced at him. "Sir, Ghost Drive units are at 85% efficiency. But the power strain." "They'll hold," Raines interrupted. "They have to." The Ghost Drive had been humanity's most dangerous gamble. A technology no one believed could work. A blend of stolen Imperial sensor tech, human stealth engineering, and something else entirely. That something else had come from the ruins of a forgotten alien warship, found buried under the sands of Mars years before the first shots were fired. The Empire had dismissed it as wreckage from a pre-spacefaring race. Humanity saw it as a gift from the universe itself. The scientists who worked on it called it light-bending metamatter. Soldiers called it the cloak. The name Ghost Drive came later, whispered by pilots who swore the device made them feel invisible, not just to sensors, but to the eyes of the living. It had taken a decade of secret building. Entire shipyards hidden in asteroid belts. Silent test runs in deep space. A project so classified that even the leaders of Earth's allied worlds didn't know it existed. And now, it was humanity's sharpest blade. On the other side of the battle, the Imperial flagship reeled from the sudden strikes. "How are they doing this?" the fleet commander demanded. His voice cracked as he watched ship after ship disappear from the tactical map. They're not just invisible to our sensors," a technician stammered. "They're warping their energy signatures, their heat output, even their mass readings. It's like they're not really there." "Then destroy them when they are there," the commander roared. But it was already too late. The Ghost Fleet was everywhere and nowhere. One Imperial destroyer, the Vigilant, spun helplessly after a railgun slug from an unseen attacker smashed through its reactor. Another, the Iron Fang, vanished in a blossom of fire as 4 stealth torpedoes struck its engines. From his throne, the Emperor watched it all. His face was calm, but his eyes were no longer arrogant. He was studying, calculating, trying to understand. On the Resolute, Raines stepped closer to the comms console. "Open a private channel to the Emperor's flagship." The comms officer hesitated. "Sir, you think he'll listen?" Raines' voice was a quiet blade. "He'll listen." Moments later, the Emperor's voice filled the Resolute's bridge, deep and steady. "Admiral Raines." Raines didn't smile. "Your Majesty, this is the second and last time I'll say this. Surrender your fleet, or we will burn it around you." The Emperor chuckled once, low and dangerous. "You fought well. Better than any before you. But you will not take my empire." Raines's reply was ice. "I'm not here to take your empire, Emperor. I'm here to end it." With a silent hand signal, he ordered the next phase. In the shadows behind the main battle, a second Ghost Fleet, one the Empire had not yet seen, emerged. Smaller ships, faster, and armed for one purpose: to reach the Emperor's throne ship. Every Imperial escort scrambled to block them. It didn't matter. The Ghost Fleet's formation twisted like smoke, slipping through gaps, striking shields with pinpoint precision. The Emperor's commander turned pale. "They're not aiming for our fleet anymore. They're coming for you." The Emperor did not answer. His gaze was locked on the hologram of the incoming human ships. And for the first time since the galaxy had learned to fear his name, he wondered if his throne was already lost. The trap is sprung. The trap was closing. In the dark gulf of space between Earth and the Imperial fleet, the Ghost Drive ships moved like shadows with purpose. They didn't fly in straight lines. They wove through the chaos, silent and precise, slipping between wreckage and enemy fire like they had been born in the void. Admiral Raines stood at the center of the Resolute's bridge, the tactical map glowing across his stern face. He watched as the blue icons of the Ghost units drew tighter around the Emperor's flagship. "They've taken the bait," Raines said. "Now we finish it." "Sir," Captain Vega warned, "if we push this far into their center, we risk losing half our fleet." Raines's eyes didn't leave the map. "Half our fleet, for their throne. That's a trade I'll make." On the Imperial flagship, alarms screamed through every deck. The Emperor's personal guard, towering soldiers in black armor, rushed to their stations. Fighters launched from hidden bays, forming a defensive wall around the throne ship. "Push them back," the Imperial fleet commander barked. "The Emperor's position must be secure." But the Ghost fleet didn't meet them head-on. Instead, they struck and vanished, appearing behind enemy formations and tearing holes in their defenses before fading into the dark again. The Emperor watched the movements on his own tactical display. For years, he had fought wars against every kind of enemy, rebels, pirates, rival empires, but never had he seen an opponent fight like this. It was surgical, merciless. Every shot the humans fired had purpose. Engines, reactors, weapon mounts, nothing wasted on blind destruction. They weren't trying to cripple the fleet. They were cutting a path. To him. In the shadows near the Emperor's throne ship, the human strike group closed in. At its center was the Black Star, a small, dagger-shaped corvette with engines that burned so cold they barely registered on scanners. Inside the Black Star, Commander Leona Hart, leader of the strike group, leaned forward in her pilot's chair. "Target in sight," she reported over secure comms. "Advancing on final vector." Raines's voice came through her headset, steady as stone. "You have one objective, Commander. Breach the flagship. Capture or kill the Emperor." "Understood," Hart replied. The Black Star and its escort broke formation, accelerating toward the Imperial throne ship. Enemy fire streaked past them, some shots grazing their shields, others missing entirely as Hart banked hard, rolling the corvette through a gap between two burning cruisers. On the throne ship, the Emperor's commander turned pale. "Your Majesty, they're breaking through the last line of defense." The Emperor's golden eyes narrowed. "Then stop them." The command went out, and the Imperial flagship's hidden weapons roared to life, massive plasma cannons, railguns, and missile silos that had not fired in decades. The void lit up as a wall of fire filled the space between the humans and the throne. But the Ghost fleet was ready. From the black around the throne ship, more human vessels decloaked, dozens of them, surrounding the Emperor's position from every angle. They fired all at once, a synchronized storm of torpedoes and railgun slugs that tore through the defensive wall. Explosions blossomed across the hull of the flagship, shaking its vast frame. Inside the Emperor's command chamber, the lights flickered. Dust rained from the ceiling as bulkheads groaned under the assault. Still, the Emperor stood. "You think you can take my life, Admiral Raines? Do you think the death of one man will end an empire?" Raines's voice echoed across the bridge in a fleet-wide broadcast. "No, Emperor. But it will end yours." The Black Star smashed through the last defense line, its cannons blazing. Imperial guards poured fire into its hull, but the corvette's armor held. With a shuddering impact, it latched onto the flagship's side like a predator sinking claws into its prey. Boarding tubes punched through the Emperor's ship, and human marines in black combat armor surged inside, weapons ready. For the first time in living memory, the Emperor's palace in the stars had been breached. And in that moment, every soldier, human and Imperial alike, knew the battle had changed. It was no longer just a fight for space. It was a fight for the heart of an empire. Turning the tide. The boarding alarms still echoed through the Emperor's flagship when the voice of the Imperial fleet commander cut through the chaos. "Sun Spear is online." Every officer on the Emperor's bridge turned toward the massive holographic display. At the far edge of the battle, a colossal Imperial warship was drifting into position. Its hull was black as obsidian, its surface covered in glowing lines of molten gold. At its core, a sphere of pure energy pulsed brighter and brighter, like a newborn star about to ignite. The Sun Spear. For centuries, the mere sight of it had ended rebellions. Whole planets had surrendered rather than watch it fire. It was said that when the Sun Spear released its energy, it did not simply burn a world, it erased it. The Emperor's voice was cold as winter steel. Target the human homeworld. Fire at will. On the Resolute, alarms screamed. Admiral, the Sun Spear is locking onto Earth, the sensor officer shouted. Raines's head snapped toward the display. The glowing sphere at the heart of the weapon was already at half charge. At full power, it would unleash a beam so hot it would cut through oceans, mountains, and cities in a single heartbeat. Can our ghost units reach it in time? Captain Vega asked, his voice tight. Not fast enough, Raines said, his jaw clenched. But maybe we can blind it. He turned to his comms officer. Patch me to Commander Hart. On the Black Star, Hart's voice crackled over the link. Still locked on to the Emperor's ship, Admiral. Do you want us to break off? Raines hesitated for half a second. The Emperor was almost in her grasp. Killing him now could end the war. But if the Sun Spear fired, there would be no Earth left to save. Break off, Raines ordered. All strike units, target the Sun Spear. Now. The Black Star and half the Ghost fleet peeled away from the Emperor's flagship, vanishing into the black. The Imperial defenses shifted immediately, opening gaps in the cordon around the Emperor. But it didn't matter. If Earth died, victory meant nothing. The Sun Spear's charge climbed to 60%. On the Emperor's bridge, one advisor stepped closer. Majesty, we should withdraw the Sun Spear to a safe distance. The humans may. They will not touch it, the Emperor cut in, his voice like a blade. By the time they reach it, their world will be gone. The charging sphere grew so bright that even the human ships on the far side of the battle could see its light. It looked like a second sun rising in the void. 70%. The Ghost fleet tore through enemy lines, striking at the ships protecting the Sun Spear. The Imperial escorts fought like cornered beasts, knowing that if the weapon was destroyed, their Emperor's wrath would fall on them. 80%. The Black Star dived low, skimming the surface of a burning dreadnought to avoid enemy fire. Hart's voice came through, steady but fierce. We're close, Admiral. But their shields are strong. Stronger than anything we've faced. 90%. Raines's eyes locked on the timer. All ships, concentrate fire on the Sun Spear's shield generators. We don't need to break the weapon. We just need to stop it from firing. The first Ghost torpedoes struck the shimmering golden shield around the Sun Spear. The energy rippled but held. Railgun slugs followed, punching at the same point again and again until cracks began to form in the barrier. 95%. On the Sun Spear's control deck, Imperial gunners shouted over the rising hum of the core. Shields holding. Weapon charge stable. 98%. The Black Star broke through the last layer of defense, racing toward the weapon's glowing heart. Hart's targeting officer locked onto the central cooling array, the one weakness in the Sun Spear's design. Fire! Hart commanded. A single rail slug tore from the Black Star's forward cannon, streaking into the golden shield. For a split second, the barrier flared, then shattered. 100%. The Sun Spear fired. A beam of pure white fire erupted from its core, cutting across the void toward Earth. But at the same instant, the rail slug from the Black Star slammed into the cooling array. The weapon's core overloaded. The perfect, straight beam wavered, splintered, and then fractured into wild arcs of energy that ripped through the Imperial fleet itself. Imperial warships exploded in chains of fire as the Sun Spear's death light tore through their hulls. Entire wings of the fleet were vaporized in seconds. On the Resolute, cheers erupted, but Raines didn't smile. His voice was grim. The tide is turning, Vega. Now we finish it. And somewhere in the smoking wreckage of his once perfect fleet, The Emperor realized this battle was no longer about victory. It was about survival. The last ultimatum. The void was no longer silent. Wreckage drifted across the black, glowing in the light of distant stars. The once perfect formation of the Galactic Empire's fleet had been reduced to a graveyard of twisted metal and dying engines. Here and there, ships still fought, exchanging fire with the relentless human vessels, but the tide had turned. Everyone could feel it. On the Resolute, Admiral Raines stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. The Sun Spear's destruction had torn a hole not just in the enemy's fleet, but in their will. For the first time since the war began, Imperial ships were retreating. And now, it was time to end this. "Patch me into the galaxy-wide relay," Raines ordered. The comms officer blinked. "Sir, that will broadcast to every Imperial system." "I know," Raines said. His voice was low, steady, and unshakable. "Do it." A moment later, his image appeared on every Imperial ship, on every world still loyal to the Emperor, and in every hidden corner of the galaxy where oppressed species watched the war in silence. "This is Admiral Raines of the United Earth Fleet," he began. His tone was calm, but each word carried the weight of an executioner's sentence. "The Emperor's armada lies in ruins. The Sun Spear is gone, and his throne ship is surrounded. You have seen what humanity can do. You have seen what we will do." His eyes hardened. "We do not come to conquer your worlds. We come to free them. But if you stand in our way, we will turn your cities to ash." Across the galaxy, billions listened in silence. In the minds of the Emperor's slave worlds, workers paused mid-swing, staring at flickering holofeeds. On the high balconies of noble palaces, the lords of the Empire exchanged uneasy glances. And in the Emperor's throne room, the golden light from the battle outside flickered across his face. He did not move, but the muscles in his jaw tightened. Raines leaned closer to the camera. "This is your last chance. To the Emperor, to every fleet commander, to every soldier in his name, surrender now. Lay down your arms. Or burn." The broadcast ended. The silence that followed was heavier than any explosion. Then slowly it began. One by one, Imperial ships powered down their weapons. First a handful, then dozens, then hundreds. Entire squadrons turned and fled toward hyperspace routes, abandoning the fight. But not all. From the heart of the battle, the Emperor's personal guard ships formed up, their black armor reflecting the fires around them. The Emperor's voice crackled across a private channel to Raines's flagship. "You speak like a conqueror, Admiral," the Emperor said, his tone almost amused. "But you are still mortal, and mortals bleed." Raines answered without hesitation. "So do tyrants." The Resolute's gunners adjusted their aim. The Ghost Fleet reformed into a tight spearhead, pointed directly at the Emperor's throne ship. The humans were done waiting. From orbit to the farthest edge of the system, everyone watching understood. The war was no longer about territory or strategy. It was about the will to survive. The Emperor still held that will. But humanity had turned it into a weapon sharper than any blade.